You've just gone plant-based, but it's so confusing. Where am I going to get my protein? And where am I going to get my omega-3s? What about all those vitamins? Well, fear not, because today's guest is going to clear all that up for you. Welcome to the Fabulous Health Show. I'm your host, Terry Crispin. I'm a whole food, plant-based nutritionist, and this show gives you the tools to help you obtain optimal health so that you can live a long, happy life and age with grace and vitality. You can catch these episodes live on Facebook, LinkedIn or YouTube, or on your favorite podcast platform such as Apple Podcasts, Google and Spotify. Or you can just ask your smart speaker to play the latest episode of the Fabulous Health Show. How cool is that? It's episode 67. And today we are joined by Geoff Palmer. Geoff is a vegan science geek, I love it, and a natural bodybuilder. And today we're going to discuss some truths and some lies about plant-based nutrition. Welcome, Geoff. Give us a quick Geoff Palmer bio and how you became interested in the science of nutrition.
Thank you, Terry. Pleasure being on here. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I started out, I was fascinated when I was in high school and college as a athlete, a swimmer, how I could consume 5,000 to 8,000 calories a day and be at 4% body fat. So the nutrition became an important factor in my performance. And the more I studied as a biopsych major in college, the more I learned to read studies. And I was just fascinated by how the human body works and what we put in it and how it affects mood and behavior, athletic performance, and overall health.
Yeah, perfect. And in fact, since then, you've actually worked in the nutrition field for a long, long time, formulating supplements. And in fact, you have your own company too, a whole plant-based vegan supplement company. How fantastic is that? And so you are absolute proof that you can be fit, healthy, and a champion on a vegan lifestyle. I love it. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is the number one thing, and that is protein. And in fact, let everybody see this. I wore my t-shirt. Keep calm. Plants have protein, because that's one question that we all get asked, don't we, Geoff? So number one, do we really need 30% protein, the average person who's not lifting weights 7 times a week?
No, with a caveat. The type of protein really matters. All protein is not the same, and different proteins behave differently in the human body. There was a wonderful study on IGF-1, which is an indicator of a growth hormone in the body triggered by protein intake. And they found that there was a 400% increase in cancer, a 500% increase in diabetes if you were consuming a high amount of animal protein. But what was amazing about this study is that it showed the exact same high amount of protein, if it was from plants, had no negative effects whatsoever. So it's not necessarily just the quantity of protein, but the quality of the protein, where that protein originates. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about what the key differences are between animal proteins and plant proteins.
So yes, we are going to get to that in just a second. But before we do that, I wanted to talk about this myth of incomplete proteins, where people think that if you eat plants, you have to mix and match your proteins because the plants don't have all the amino acids in them, whereas your animal products have the amino acids in them. Now, for those of you who don't know what that means, is that amino acids are all the building blocks of proteins, and there are 21 of them, and 11 of them we make inside our body, but there are 9 of them that we need to get from our food. And there was this myth that you couldn't get all those 9 from plants, certainly not individual plants. So do you want to clarify that for us, please, Geoff?
Yeah, so let's start where that whole myth started from. So there are 2 amino acids out of the 9 essential amino acids. First, let's say animals do not make essential amino acids. So the milk, the eggs, the meat that you're eating, That is all essential amino acids that are made by plants, because only plants and some bacteria make essential amino acids. Animals do not and cannot make essential amino acids. So effectively, all essential amino acids that we consume are coming from plants. Whether you take those plants and feed them to an animal, and then the animal converts it into their own flesh, you're still getting essential amino acids indirectly from the plants. So the question is, why feed the plants to an animal, kill the animal, and steal its essential amino acids when we can get them directly from the plants? Those essential amino acids vary in their ratios. So if you took all the 9 essential amino acids, each one would have a different level of each of the essential amino acids. Now, this myth came from the fact that if you look at animal protein, they are generally higher in two specific amino acids called methionine and cysteine. Now, the assumption was that if animals are higher in protein, and generally they are, the flesh of a burger or meat is higher generally than most of the food we eat by volume basis, not by weight. If you look at that, you say, oh, wait a minute, those are higher in methionine and cysteine, so plants must be inferior because they have less. Okay, when we actually look at what happens to the human physiology when you put high amounts of methionine in the body, that methionine feeds cancer cell growth. So much so that scientists have now relabeled these cancers as methionine-dependent cancers. You can type that into Google and you're going to see a whole bunch of studies that show the way to prevent many cancers like lung cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer, pancreatic cancer, all are methionine dependent. That means those cancer cells feed on that methionine. So the more methionine you intake, the more you're feeding cancer growth. Now, that's why we see high rates of cancer in those eating meat, 400% in the highest quartile of those eating the highest amounts of protein. So the assumption was that high amounts of methionine are better because they're higher in meat, and higher amounts of cysteine are better. Now, cysteine can convert in the human body into a chemical called homocysteine. Homocysteine damages the insides of our arteries and causes plaque. That is heart attacks and stroke. Now, if you take cancer, heart attacks, and stroke, those are the three biggest killers of Americans in the United States, and they're all caused by these two amino acids that are higher in animal proteins. So it's not that plants being low in methionine and cysteine is a bad thing. This is actually a good thing. You want a lower amount of. As a matter of fact, most of the studies will say the best way to restrict a methionine in a methionine restricted diet is a vegan diet. So the best way to kill cancers is to eat vegan diet. And the best way to feed cancers is to consume high amounts of animal proteins. So it's not that they're incomplete, it's that they are more complete for the human body, and that actually animal proteins are too high in them and not a good thing.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. And so eye-opening too, because it's like you and I are in the vegan space, and for us, it's like, well, we know this, so why are people eating a burger? And, and it causes me internal stress when I see somebody I love eating something that could harm them. But the issue is that it's not greatly advertised that that the meat products give you cancer, only if you look for the information. So let's move on now to iron. People say, I feel better when I eat a steak because when I eat plant-based, I'm anemic. Now, obviously, these are unqualified statements, and this is not from a real person. This is just a general statement that came into my head. But you hear things like this. Talk to me about iron and how it affects the human body and the different types of iron.
And this is a really important one because it's a very clear distinction between plants and animals. All animals, including fish, chicken, turkey, all of these animal products, all of the flesh of animals contains what's called heme iron. Heme iron is unbound iron. That's what we have in our body. Our body makes its own heme iron inside our body, not in our digestive tract. Inside of our body, it takes iron and converts it into heme iron. So when you eat an animal that's obviously dead, you're taking in the heme iron. Now, if you take iron by itself in its free form and you add water to it outside of the body, what happens? It rusts.
It rusts.
It oxidizes. Well, that same oxidation can happen in our digestive tract. And that oxidative process forms these compounds called nitrosamines. These are cancer-causing things. Nitrosamines form and stimulate cancer cells. There's no question about it. It's not may, it's does. This is why heme iron directly is known to produce cancer cells in the human body. And colon cancer is one of the fastest growing cancers in the United States, of cancer killers of men and women combined, second only to lung cancer. So as far as digestion goes and what the food you put in your mouth, heme iron is found in all animal products and is potently a carcinogen. Okay, so why is it this assumption that heme iron is better for you? Okay, heme iron is free iron, so it absorbs into the system really fast. As a matter of fact, a new study out of the UK showed that heme iron uptakes so much that our own liver produces a very cool chemical called hepcidin to block that from coming in because it's too much iron. So it's too much iron getting into our bloodstream too fast, and our body will actually fight against heme iron. Now, what that does is it forces all this heme iron to stay in our digestive tract instead of getting utilized and oxidize. And that's why we're seeing such high rates of colon cancer, because it's not able to get into the bloodstream because our own body is fighting against this flood of heme iron that comes in from that. So too much fast-acting iron is not a good thing, and our body has a specific mechanism to fight against that heme iron from getting too much into our blood system. Now, plant iron binds it to a really cool ingredient called phytic acid. Phytic acid, or phytates, actually are anti-cancer. So the body keeps these bound as an antioxidant, which means it cannot oxidize and it cannot cause cancer until our microbiome, which communicates directly with our cells, says, wait a minute, we need some iron. Let's cleave off the phytic acid and now absorb the iron. So we have a beautiful regulatory system in our digestive tract by our microbiome to control just the right amount of iron going into our bloodstream. This is perfect. Now, this phytic acid, once it's free, it's called IP6. Once it's free, can actually go into a cancer cell and switch off the growth and cause that cancer cell to be killed and die, or even revert back to a healthy, normal cell. That's right. This plant iron can turn a cancer cell back into a healthy cell. That's unheard of in the scientific community, and plants do this. Have this naturally phytic acid bound, beautiful system.
I know,
perfectly.
It's absolutely amazing. I've interviewed some people who have had cancer and reversed it, put themselves into remission. Nobody ever wants to say the cancer is cured because it's a bit scary to say that. Yes. But certainly remission for years and years and years, and no, what do they call it? No detectable sign of cancer in their body after going whole food, plant-based. And just a caveat for everybody, we are not giving medical advice here. This is just information. And if you are suffering from cancer, you really need to discuss things like this with your personal practitioner. Okay, that is just amazing. I love it. It's the thing about iron is that, you know, iron can be toxic if you have too much in your body. So the fact that the body regulates it, the non-heme iron from eating plants, I just always say, Geoff, that the human body is the most amazing machine on the planet. And look, I'll expand that. The elephant body, the alligator body, the dog body, whatever body it is, animals on this planet have been designed, I don't know, Mother Nature, God, evolution, whatever, to be perfect, haven't they? And so the amazing things that happen in our body to make us well, once you start fueling your body with the correct ingredients, blows my mind. It's fantastic. And this is why you and I are on our soapbox about getting as many people as possible to start eating whole plant foods, because the body will bring itself back into homeostasis, which is balance, by the way, and make itself well. All right, let's talk about fish oil. Everybody's saying you need fish oil. You need those omega-3s. You need these healthy fats. Talk to me about fish oil. Talk to me about the good things about omega-3s first, and then we'll talk about why we don't want fish oil.
Yes. So the big assumption is that fish oil contains essential omega-3s. It actually does not. There is zero, and you heard this correctly, zero essential omega-3 in fish oil, EPA, and DHA. When I ask people what are the two essential, meaning the body needs them, just like essential amino acids, we build all of our proteins based on those 9 essential amino acids. We have to get them from our food, and it's essential for life. So what are the two essential omegas? They are ALA, omega-3, which comes from plants, and LA, omega-6, which comes from plants. Those two are the two essential omegas that human bodies require. Okay, this is where it gets interesting. Fish do not make omegas. They don't. They consume omegas just like we do. Fish directly or indirectly get their omega-3s from algae. Algae is what produces it. Plants produce essential fatty acids. Animals do not. That's why we call them essential, because all animals, including humans, have to get them from outside of our body because our bodies cannot make them. Animals don't make them. Fish don't make them. Humans don't make them. We must get them from food. Well, then who makes them? Plants. Plants make all of the essential amino acids. Plants make all of the essential fats. Plants make all of the carbohydrates, all of the nutrients like polyphenols, almost all of the antioxidants, all made by plants and only plants. This is the only place that they come from. Feeding those nutrients to an animal and then killing it and taking those plant nutrients, why include the poor animal in that equation? It's not necessary.
Yeah. So talk to me also about the problems of fish oil. What's inside the capsule? When people buy a fish oil capsule, yes, it's going to have DHA because the fish converted the ALA from the algae. But correct. What else is in that capsule that maybe the human body is not really interested in?
Yes. So one of the key things was just a brand new study that was just out this year that showed those eating the highest amounts of fish actually had higher rates of melanoma skin cancer. Skin cancer is one of the most common forms of cancer of human beings in the world. And that fish, and the authors of the researchers of the study suggested that it may be due to the high contamination, the amount of plastics that are in fish, the amount of drugs. They found, they took some fish. I live in Florida. They took, a university did a study that took fish, caught fish all off the coast of Florida, and found 100% of the fish that they caught had at least 7 different pharmaceutical drugs in their body.
Absurd.
That's what you're getting when you're consuming fish.
Yeah.
And some had 11 to 14 different types, antidepressants, birth control. I mean, all these opioid drugs in the fish. It's because we're dumping them in the ocean, that we're putting them through our bodies and peeing them out, and then pushing that those contaminants out into the ocean. And the fish are getting loaded with them. So whether it's plastics, pollution,
like salmon,
and drugs. Okay, so let's break down though ALA conversion. So all herbivores have a 5-step process of converting ALA to SDA to ETA, then EPA, which most people have heard of, then DPA, and then DHA at the very bottom. And it's a unidirectional change. So why does the body have 5 different levels of omegas? And why are we only talking about 2 out of the 6 actual omegas, 5 processes, but 6 different forms of omegas? Why are we only talking about 2? Well, 2 are used and stored a lot by the body. EPA, more for the heart, DHA, more for the brain. So we focused on those 2. What we didn't look at, though, is are those first 3 actually important? ALA, SDA, and ETA. Now, remember, you're only going to get those from plants. Because if you start with EPA, it can only convert down to DPA and DHA. So you're only getting the bottom.
It can't go backwards up the tree, can it?
It can't go back up. It's a unidirectional change. So you're not getting any of that first 3 when you take EPA and DHA, which is what's found in fish and algae. And for that reason, I've never taken algae as a supplement either, because all it's doing is algae is repeating what the fish do. Now, the fish are generally carnivorous. Some are herbivorous. Some eat the plant, but most of the fish are carnivorous, and they eat other fish that eat the algae, and that's how they get their EPA and DHA. Now, carnivorous animals only need EPA and DHA. It was evidence of why we're not a carnivore. We actually have the metabolism, the conversion chart of an herbivore. So why do herbivores need ALA, SDA, and ETA? Well, we looked at the study that actually showed those with the highest amounts of those first 3 had better brain capacity and function in their older age, and through autopsies found that they actually had higher grain matter. That is preservation of your brain. And for me, having a higher IQ and having my brain stay around for the rest of my life and not shrink as I age, which can lead to senile dementia and other different damaging costs, this is really important. And you cannot get those first 3 from fish oil. None, 0. No animal products have them. Only plants can provide that for you. So this is really important reason why people should be, let me rephrase that. I don't want to say shoulds. I would never personally take anything but a good ALA SDA supplement. And I found the richest source of ALA and SDA of any plant in the world. It's a plant called ahi flower. I brought it to market, and it won the top supplement award in the United States for best new supplement of the year.
Fantastic. So you're saying stay also away from algae-based omegas and go for, could you just say what that plant is again?
Yeah, the plant is called ahi flower, like ahi the fish, and flower the plant. It's a plant with a hard seed, and the reason nobody's ever heard of it because the seed is so hard. It's called stone seed. It will break your teeth if you try to bite on them. So human beings have never used them for a food source until some scientists just started breaking it apart and looking at it to see what its nutritional value, and it was off the charts. So that's why it's taken so long for humans to realize this higher in ALA, SDA, and omega-3 and omega-6 than chia, than hemp, than flax, all of them significantly higher, and has natural forms of GLA in it too as well. So very anti-inflammatory, so perfect for health conditions, but also giving you the best and highest quality for the least amount of fat.
Excellent. Oh, I like that too. So what I'll do is I'll put a link to that in the description below. So if you want to check out that omega supplement, then you can check that out. Okay, let's move on to vitamin D3, or at least it doesn't really matter, vitamin D. A lot of people are not getting enough vitamin D because people are inside. And if you don't know, your skin creates the vitamin D when you go out into the sun. And I lived in the Middle East for a couple of years, and the temperatures can get up to 125 degrees Fahrenheit, which I think is like 50 degrees Celsius. And a lot of people, even in the sunny countries, they don't go outside. And plus in the Middle East, particularly the women, they're all covered up for personal and religious reasons. And so there's a real problem with vitamin D deficiency for populations, even in sunny locations. And for those of you who don't know, vitamin D is really essential for bone health. So let's talk about why we need vitamin D. How can we get it if we don't want to go out in the sun and give ourselves skin cancer?
Great question. And I think vitamin D3 is one of the supplements that, besides B12, that I really think most people should really take a good consideration of looking at it and talk to their doctor about it. You can get, it's called 25OH, a blood test for it to actually measure the bioactive amounts of D3 that are in your system, and talk with your physician about how to get your levels back up into sufficient state. So there's deficiency, there's insufficiency, and then there's sufficiency. You want to be a sufficient amount in your bloodstream so that you're doing it on a regular basis. Yeah. Not only are the facts that we're working indoors most of the time and not getting direct sunlight on our bodies, there are other factors. One is where you live on the planet. The planet's a round ball, and sun can reflect off of it, meaning that sunlight doesn't get through in the northern climates. So here in the United States, if you're at the, I think it's the 38th parallel, it was about North Carolina north, even if you're getting direct sunlight, you could be actually getting zero vitamin D3 action.
Wow.
So during the winter times or in northern climates, it is much more difficult to get bioactive vitamin D3 through sun activation. Number two is fat. Vitamin D3 is fat soluble. If you are overweight, that vitamin D3 gets sucked up into the fat cells, and then it's not bioavailable for your body to use for proper functions. So that's another thing. They found that the higher body weight, body fat that you're carrying, the higher amounts of vitamin D3 that you may need in order to get to sufficiency, because your body is actually fat storing all that excess, that extra D3 that your body needs. Number three, this color of your skin. So those exposed to high amounts of direct sunlight, especially on the equator, their bodies have adapted by producing more melanin so that the skin turns darker. This reflects that sunlight so that they don't overproduce vitamin D3. So the darker the skin, the more melanin you're producing, the more the body is repelling vitamin D3 activation. So those who are Hispanic or Black or have darker skin for whatever reason are going to need actually higher amounts of vitamin D3 than someone who is fair-skinned or has less melanin in their skin. So where you live, what time of year, if you're obese, and if your skin color is, and plus your level of activity and age also matter. As we age, we get less efficient at converting vitamin D3 to its bioactive state. And lastly, our diet. So vitamin D3 actually gets bioactivated by our microbiome in our gut. And the specific bacteria that make that D3 into just basic D3 that starts the catalytic process, which later changes to bioactive D3 in the liver and the kidneys. This is done. This whole process is started by bacteria in the gut. So a healthy microbiome. Now, what does that actual bacteria that lives in our gut that helps us bioactivate the D3 in our gut? That is fiber. That's what they feed on. So they found even those who were taking high amounts of vitamin D3 were not having high amounts of bioactive vitamin D3 if they were consuming low amounts of fiber. Once again, plants are the way to go. Plants provide that fiber that increase the amount of bacteria that change that D3 into bioactive form and allow you to benefit from the health benefits of it. Vitamin D3 is important for hormone health, especially for men, for testosterone levels. Those who are deficient can have a plummeting amount of testosterone levels because vitamin D3 plays a role in that. Vitamin D3 also plays a role in muscle strength, up to 19% increase in muscle strength just by taking vitamin D3. Now, most of the vitamin D3 that most people think about comes from animals because why? They're out in the sun and they're getting lots of vitamin D3. So when you eat the animal, of course, you're borrowing their vitamin D3 that they made by sun exposure. But you don't have to kill an animal to get it. There are many sources. I was actually fortunate enough to find the very first source from organic algae. Now, this is the first purified, pure vitamin D3 from a non-animal source ever to get the market, and it's organic. That's why I was so excited. Obviously, it's vegan, certified vegan too as well. So now you don't have to cause harm to an animal in order to get sufficient amounts of bioactive, pure vitamin D3.
I love that. I love the fact that we bring it back to the fact that everything that you need to be optimally healthy comes from plants, and that you don't need to kill an animal. And I think that's really important, that some people start on their plant-based journey for their own health, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But the more you delve into it, the more you realize that by making these choices for yourself, as a side effect, you're helping both the planet and you're helping animals. And that's a very, very beautiful thing. We are running out of time. So the last thing we're going to talk about is the number one supplement that every single person who eats whole food, plant-based, vegan, vegetarian, even omnivores now, they say, should be taking this vitamin because of the lack of it in our diet, is vitamin B12. Talk to us briefly about why we need vitamin B12. I actually have a whole podcast on this, which is episode 19, but just so that the watchers and the listeners now, maybe they haven't watched that, give us the lowdown on vitamin B12, why we need it, why it's so important to our bodies.
Yeah, I think everyone, regardless of your dietary habits, should consider taking a source of B12. It is so important to nerve and brain function, and a whole host of other processes in the body. But probably most important is that you can suffer irreversible damage from B12 deficiency, brain damage, nerve damage. Deficiency, yes. If left untreated, vitamin B12 deficiency can cause irreparable and irreversible damage. It's just not worth the risk.
No.
Yeah, there's so many different ways. You can get them in food. You can take it as a supplement. Fortified foods like cereals or soy milks or things like that, plant-based milks. There's plenty of ways of getting vitamin B12. Nutritional yeast, it does not naturally produce B12. It's human beings adding vitamin B12 to it, but that's another source too as well. So there's no real excuse not to. As a matter of fact, the animals that are factory farmed raised, like chickens in houses or pigs in these huge houses that they keep them in factory farms. Same with cattle. Aren't getting enough B12, so much so that they're actually injecting the animals or putting it in their food to get the B12 in them. So even if you're getting them from the animals, from factory farmed animals, which is 90% of the food that's available, animal foods that are available, you're probably getting supplemental D3 that was just given by the farmer to the animal anyway. So why not just take it yourself?
Yeah, and then the thing is, the other thing that I want to talk about just briefly before we finish up is the fact that when you go to the supermarket and you look at the vitamins on the shelf or at the CVS or whatever, you can find ones that have 2,000 micrograms of vitamin B12, and we only need 2.4 micrograms of vitamin B12. And the thing is that the bioavailability of the B12 in those huge, big tablets is actually less than the bioavailability of the B12 if you take a 50 microgram or 100 microgram tablet. So it's kind of not worth it anyway to be just taking mega doses. And the other thing is that I keep reminding people is that the human body likes things in balance. We have nutritional requirements, and more is not always better. For example, you don't want to overdose on vitamin A, supplemental vitamin A that is toxic to your body. You really don't want to just buy mega doses of vitamins. You want to get them from where, Geoff, mostly?
Whole plant foods.
That's right, yeah. Get them from your food and supplement if required. And the only way you can find out if you need to supplement is by getting a full blood panel and looking at these vitamins in your body and talking to your physician. Apart from vitamin B12, everybody should take vitamin B12. Okay, Geoff, thank you so much. You are a wealth of information. I love the way you explain things because it can be confusing to people. So thank you so much for coming on to the podcast today, and I hope you have a fantastic day. I will put links to your lovely company. Do you want to give it a plug?
Sure, you can find us on cleanmachineonline.com. You can also I do Facebook Lives every Thursday at 4 p.m. in the United States, 4 p.m. Eastern in the United States. I do Facebook Lives on all of the major research that is coming out on nutrition, a plant-based diet, and physical exercise to keep you healthy, so you can keep updated on the latest research. So you can find us at Clean Machine Fit on Facebook and IG.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, that was Geoff Palmer, and you've been listening to the Fabulous Health Show. Now, if you want to get more information or watch other podcasts, then head over to fabuloushealth.net. That's where you'll find all the previous podcasts. We've got 67 of them. I hope you have a fabulous day, and I'll see you next episode. See you later.